Hello, everybody. We're going to be starting, well, we started the meeting, but we'll be kicking it off here in just a couple of minutes as we wait for people to join. Figured I'd start sharing now. Such a fun slide. All right, it's 10 o'clock. Let's get cracking here. I want to welcome everybody, and I appreciate you taking the time to join us today. We have an exciting lineup, and for those of you that don't know me, my name is Chris Moore. I'm a partner with Armanino. I started our practice just over 20 years ago. And at Armanino, we've got about 400 plus dedicated resources to the Microsoft platform across our managed services organization, our Power Platform team, which we call Business Analytics and Automation, our strategy and transformation team, which is really works to help companies define how they can use some of the tools and technologies that we're talking about today, but really helping companies put a roadmap together. And then we got just a breadth of experience from compliance and tax and audit and all those capabilities that we can bring to the table. But first of all, I'd like to thank our distinguished guests today, Mike Ehrenberg and Wayne Wilson from Microsoft, as well as Alex Fredrickson from Armanino, who are going to be presenting today. And I want to do a quick shout out to our amazing partner manager, Clint Will, who has kind of helped guide us, through the journey over the last 10 years. From an agenda perspective, we've got a number of items that we're going to be covering today, really focused around CoPilot and different technologies and capabilities that are being embedded into the overall Microsoft application footprint. One of the things, kind of a personal kind of reflection as to what we're seeing right now is, if you guys can remember 10 years back, there was a huge paradigm shift of going to the cloud. Everyone was concerned about, hey, is my data safe? Is it really more cost effective? Is this the right approach for me? But now, cloud has become, front and center to a lot of business decisions when it comes to business applications. And we're seeing the same thing when we look at AI, Copilot, and chat. And today we're going to talk about some of the advances, but this is just the beginning. I mean, things right now are moving at the speed of light, and there's a real opportunity to take advantage of new technology to drive transformation and efficiencies within your organization. If you Google some of these terms, you're going to see there's a platform or a solution for many of these. But one of the reasons, one of the things that we're real proud about is that if you look at the Microsoft business application stack, these are all encompassed within that solution set that you can leverage. And you're going to see that as we go through the presentation. Carmel Wincoop, who runs our BAA team, has got a really cool podcast called AI I Got This. It's really intended to help people see use cases that make sense to them and really demystify some of the technology that and some of the buzzwords that you're hearing today. With that, I want to introduce Mike Ehrenberg and give a little bit. Mike Ehrenberg is a Microsoft Technical Fellow. He is responsible for the development of Microsoft technologies. He lives in Seattle. He spends time cycling, skiing, watching and playing soccer, and cheering on the Boston Red Sox. But what I'm most proud about is his participation as part of the Pan Mass Challenge. Last year, that organization raised over $72 million for cancer research. So, Mike, I'm going to let you take it away from here, but thank you for participating today.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, the PMC is definitely a big part of my life. It's the first thing on my calendar every summer, and this year I think will be ride number 34. So I'm really looking forward to it. Happy to have the opportunity this morning to talk to everybody a little bit about what we're doing with CoPilot. I'm going to give a little bit of sort of vision and stage setting, and then we're going to immediately get into some demonstrations. So one of the, for us, as we sort of think about the emergence of generative AI technology and what it's enabling us to do, this really is a moment of generational change in business applications. If you kind of look at the gallery of photos here, we've changed maybe the way in which we deliver business apps over the last few decades from, green screens, or I guess here, amber screens, to big, ugly desktop PCs, to maybe slightly better looking PCs, to a PC you can carry around. But kind of the way people work with the applications really hasn't changed that much. There's still menus, there's still forms. You enter data in the form, it goes in a database, and somebody runs reports. And the thing that Gen AI is really enabling us to do is change the way that people and the software interact. And really, for the first time, getting to that place where the software is helping people do their job. And that's kind of the background for the branding and the focus on what we call CoPilot, which is what we're going to talk about today. I do want to make one other point before moving on from this. Chris talked about the, essentially 10+ year journey that it's been for the industry to get to the cloud. The thing to keep in mind about this technology change is it is happening at a speed we've never seen before. If you just sort of think back to when ChatGPT showed up in the newspaper and everybody started talking about Gen AI all the time, that's only a little more than a year ago. And we're literally doing stuff now in the products that simply wasn't even possible a year ago. And the pace of change is actually accelerating. And so it's really just an exciting time in terms of what we're going to be able to do for our customers and for with the products. And just sort of super important to keep in mind the speed with which this technology is just getting more and more capable. So when we think about that, and we kind of think about a lot of what we're trying to do, and you'll see today in the demonstrations of kind of how we're weaving dynamics and business process through the CoPilot technology right into the places where people already do their work in Teams, in Outlook, in Office, and how we connect business apps with low-code platform, and just sort of the core of what it takes of just overall cloud infrastructure and capability to make these solutions real. This is where the sort of unique value of the top to bottom Microsoft investment and innovation really is paying dividends for customers. And just focusing on that Azure OpenAI service for two key points. One, the way in which we leverage the OpenAI technology, we're able to give a promise to all of our organizational customers that any data that goes to the OpenAI service through our Azure OpenAI endpoint cannot be stored by OpenAI, cannot be used to train the models. And so we can keep all those promises and guarantees we make to our customers about their data staying secure and private and theirs in this new world. And then the second thing is, if you just look back at the last two quarterly earnings announcements that Microsoft has made, our CFO, Amy Hood, disclosed that in each quarter, we have done over $11 billion in capital investment in order to expand cloud capability, and particularly to expand the availability of this AI capacity around the globe. And that investment is continuing and actually even accelerating. And so the kind of everything we're doing that we're going to talk about today, you're seeing the tip of the iceberg, and the investment and innovation that Microsoft is doing literally from the data centers up to make that possible is really enabling us to do things, I think, that are differentiated and of super high value to our customers. Okay, let's talk a little bit about there's a lot of copilots, and we're really trying to head towards a place that people interact with one copilot and it just knows what you need to do in your role. But let's just sort of take a look at the stack we're going to kind of see today. So we start with Copilot for Microsoft 365. And so that's what makes these things accessible inside the Office environment, inside the Teams environment, and inside Outlook. On top of that, we'll see today Copilot Studio. And so that's our capability, which is used to extend the Copilot for Microsoft 365, to build custom Copilots, and also to be the base for all the copilots we're introducing in every one of our Dynamics apps, and in these very new role-based copilots, Microsoft Copilot for Service, which we're going to see today, Copilot for Sales that we're going to see today, and Copilot for Finance. And one of the other unique things that you'll see about all those three at the top, they work whether you have Dynamics or whether you have Salesforce or SAP or ServiceNow, et cetera. And so we're really trying to find ways that we can bring the power of this AI technology to customers without even necessarily making them having to rip and replace their current estate. Of course, if they have Dynamics, it gets better. So a key thing with this technology of large language models and generative AI that's trained on the public internet is, how do you actually make that work where the data that's interesting is actually private data, that's enterprise data? And how do we make sure that the models are giving answers that are grounded in facts and in reality? And the technique that's used for that is something called RAG, or Retrieval Augmented Generation. And so all the things you're going to see today, we're heavily relying on that to make sure that the model is giving answers that are based only on the data that we and that you want it to be using. So as an example, in Copilot for Microsoft 365, the assistant at work, you've got the power of the large language model, but we're grounding it on all of the Office data from the Microsoft Graph, from the Microsoft 365 apps themselves, and then with all of that enterprise-grade data protection to keep your data private, and then Copilot Studio to let you extend what it's looking at that's relevant in your environment. And when we build on top of that to something like Copilot for Finance, again, it's that same core grounding, and then we extend the data set that it's looking at to the core ERP and financial systems data. And of course, all with the security and privacy. So Copilot, what Copilot can see for you is based on what you have access to. So with that, sort of thinking about Copilot for Finance, let me introduce Wayne Wilson, who's going to actually show us Copilot for Finance.
Thanks, Mike. So as Mike said, my name is Wayne Wilson. I am a product manager with Microsoft. I'm working on the Copilot for Finance team. And thanks everyone for joining today and hearing more about Copilot for Finance. Sure, if our slides are being presented.
I thought you were going to share now, or do you want to take?
Oh, yeah. If you can continue to share, Mike.
I got it. Slides. Yeah. And why don't I give you control though?
Okay. And just as a bit of background, like Mike, I am an avid cyclist and have done some long rides like Boston to New York, and continue to do that when I can in the nice days here in Seattle.
Pan Mass is calling your name.
Yeah, I'm up to try. Let's see if we can. I don't know. Can't seem to advance the slide. All right, there we go. Okay, so as we know, finance is obviously central to every organization, and it owns the processes that span many different teams, many different departments within any given customer's organization. So while it does own it, because these do impact many different teams, there's a lot of effort that goes in to obviously make sure that the information that's produced or gathered or aggregated is done as consistently, as effectively, and efficiently as possible. And we know that as part of the process of working through these, or the effort to work through these processes, there's a significant amount of time of just that manual sort of effort, and a lot less time is able to be focused on doing things like the actual insight generation or working with the output of the aggregated data. And in fact, during a lot of research that we've done, we found about 80% of those surveyed find that they face the challenge to spend time on the more strategic work. So when we looked at Copilot for Finance and where we were going to focus, we started with these different areas of the business, the different processes that occur within finance, and looked to see where we could have impact by impact within those different processes, and especially those that don't necessarily occur within the ERP. Slide. And so when we look at CoPilot for Finance itself, as I mentioned, looking at the processes that don't necessarily occur within the ERP, but leverage the data and what's happening in the ERP, we look to focus within, right now, at our launch for two particular areas, two particular canvases, one being Excel, one being Outlook. And what we're able to do is to help connect to the ERP and bring in business logic. So when Mike showed the slide that had included sort of what CoPilot for Finance does using LLMs and generative AI, it's also incorporating the business logic that we bring in from our years of experience working with finance organizations. So our ultimate goal is to obviously accelerate impact and reduce costs. And accelerating impact is by allowing the users to have those insights automatically generated through the use of AI, and again, reducing costs by having less time spent on the effort to obtain information, and also by preventing the need to switch between different applications. So we call that context switching. So instead of having to go between the ERP and your Outlook or Excel canvases, everything is sort of can be done right there within the canvas that the user is already operating in. So with that said, I am going to share, I'm going to present a demo of CoPilot for Finance. I'm going to focus on 3 of our use cases and features. Now, here to get up here. Okay, and hopefully everyone can see my screen, right?
Yeah, you're good.
So,
Yep, we got it.
okay, great. And I will just, I will try not to go too fast, so feel free to slow me down if I'm moving a little too quickly. The native New Yorker in me sometimes can go way too quick. So what we're looking at here is a typical forecast versus actual that that finance departments do on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, end of the year basis as well. And so what someone does, whether it's an account controller or someone in financial reporting, they will look to see not just what the actual and forecast is, but really where, again, the insight comes in is sort of what's impacting this, what's driving the variances here. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in CoPilot for Finance to help with this process. So I will launch it from our add-ins. And what you can see is that we have 3 sets of features that are available: get financial data, reconcile data, and analyze variances. Now, these are 3 features that we are offering. But I'm going to start with the analyze variances. So first, the text that there's a worksheet that's here, the cash flow forecast. Then it goes and finds a table, because obviously within a worksheet, you could have more than one table. And then now it starts using AI to allow you as the user to do natural language input. So we've got the prompt here that says, for example, let's find variances where they're greater than 20%. We have suggested criteria where there's December variance more than 10%. But we're going to be, we're going to leverage that. We're going to use the suggested prompt, but you can, in a natural language perspective, write in whatever it is that you want to use as the basis for the criteria. But as I mentioned earlier, it's not just about the sort of simple math of what the actual is versus the forecast. It's really understanding what's driving that variance. So what the user is able to do is we're going to go ahead and add some additional information. So I'm going to look back into the different other analyses that we have. We've got like cash outflow by region. We've got lease and rent breakdown, loans and interest rate breakdown, payment projections by customer. So obviously, in a finance department, as you're doing financial reporting, there are many different pieces of information that you use in support of your P&Ls and your forecasts. So let's take all 4, and we're going to add them in. And so now you can see that all of those have been added into this process. And I'm going to, again, use the suggested criteria by saying, let's do the December variances that are greater than 10%. So what happens is CoPilot for Finance has gone through using AI to identify where the variances are, which you can see in these 2 lines. One is incoming customer payments. The other one is in local cash sales. And here in what we call the sidecar, we have additional information that talks about the two pairs of variances that are there. It's sort of in this first one, it talks about, using the criteria that we suggested, the 10%. It's found that there was a decline in the large customer segment. A small segment exceeded the forecast by 7%. And then analysis of business decisions revealed that Northwest division had the highest forecast miss, 11%. Additionally, down below, you see additional information about the second variance that's here. Now, more importantly, in addition to just finding this variance, it also tells you in support of the finding, it can tell you exactly where the detail came from. So it was this payment projection by customer segment. That's where it's finding where the driver of this variance is. Similarly, down here, we can see cash outflow by region is where they're finding the supporting details to support this other variance that we've identified. But in addition to this, we want to get a bit more understanding. So we can click on see more details. So it gives us an observation by looking at the data and saying, in analyzing this, we have found that there's a significant deviation from the usual consistency in Fabricam's payment schedule. And it's using AI to read underlying data in support of what it initially found just in terms of the variance. So to make this useful, what we'd want to do is then let's imagine that this information is something that I, as the controller, may say, you know what, let me reach out to my credit controller and find out what's happening with this customer. So I can say, let's add a summary. And it creates this summary that I can now share to my credit controller or someone else in the accounts receivable team. But I can say, let's add a little bit more information. I could ask a bit more questions also about this specific variance. But for now, let me just go ahead and add a chart. And you can see that it added a chart here as well, giving you a little bit more information about the history. And then it also gives you some recommendations. So in one fell swoop, using AI, not only was I able to find the variances that are occurring based on my criteria, I can also see exactly sort of what's driving it. In this case, we know there's one particular customer, Fabricam, that's really driving with this $513,000 outstanding payment. So I could share this over to my the person I have within the credit controller accounts receivable department. So for that purpose, let's just say that who's Kristen, let's say Kristen was the controller who sort of did this initial analysis. She reached out to Devin in that department and said, hey, Devin, she just pasted literally the information from the sidecar, or she could have shared it, as I mentioned before, with the share button where it went just directly through email, shared it right into Outlook, and it would have drafted and sent this email. The same information is presented here. Devin reads this and he sees that there's mention of an outstanding set of information with Fabricam. Now, what Devin can do typically would have been was Devin would have then had to go into the ERP to look up the customer to try and find out where this $513,000 payment from. And that would have meant a lot of context switching and a lot of time just reading. But I can click on CoPilot for Finance, and right here in the sidecar, using AI, it reads the email and it finds that it's Fabricam that's mentioned, and it brings up information about Fabricam. It tells you right here that Jane Cooper is the primary contact for Fabricam. It gives you some background information about Fabricam, general information about the customer, contact information, and if there are any other notes that was stored about this customer at the customer level. But more specifically, I can click on the customer, and now I get a bit more details. I can see aging history. I can see the outstanding invoices. I can see emails that have happened with Jane Cooper as well. So the next action is that Devin would say, okay, knowing what I've seen here now, let me reach out to Jane. But then Devin remembers that Jane had reached out to him earlier and had said, hey, Devin, I know that the time is coming up to talk about our next contract renewal. Can we do that? Devin seizes the opportunity to say, while I have Jane here, let me, in this email, let me engage with her on this outstanding invoice. Devin can just hit reply. And in doing so, notice that CoPilot for Finance here still is connected and says, let's inform Fabricam that they have an outstanding balance. So what the AI is doing is reading in the fact that in this thread, it knows in this email thread that it's still Fabricam, it's still Jane, and it's seeing if there are overdue invoices, which there are, and it's seeing and it's proposing to draft an email that communicates that message to Jane. So I can click on Inform Fabricam. And again, as a reminder, while I was drafting this email, just remember that, again, I didn't have to give CoPilot any indication that it was about Fabricam. I didn't have to look up the invoices or any sort of statement. It just immediately came through and said, I see that this is here. Let me propose to you what I can provide to the customer about these invoices. So it comes up and provides this email. It wrote an email now to Jane saying, I'm glad to hear from you. Hope you're well. And in this, it says, I'm happy to talk about the upcoming contract, but at the same time, it says our records indicate that there's an overdue balance of $513,000. Now, from a CoPilot perspective, I could change it. I could change the tone of this email. I could regenerate it if I want it to be longer, shorter, harsher tone, softer tone. But I'll just keep it, and I'm going to hit send. So the email sent to Jane. Now Jane reads that. Jane comes back, of course, and this is a standard process that happens with a lot of contacts with customers in terms of outstanding balances. Jane comes back now and says, thanks, Devin. I don't actually see the invoice you're seeing. I have a list of invoices. We have them all as paid. Which invoice is missing? I'm not sure. And so Jane sends a list to Devin with the list of invoices. So Devin, again, so number one, he has all of his information still present because CoPilot is actively reading because the CoPilot sidecar is open. But Devin can say, let me just take a look at this list. He can click here and just say edit in browser. And this is the list that Jane sent. Now this list has, approximately, several hundred invoices mentioned. It would take time to analyze this. And what typically would happen is Devin would now need to go in and retrieve the list of invoices that he's seen generated within his ERP, and then match that to the list that Jane has. However, that would take a lot of time, right? So A, you have to go and obtain the list. B, you then have to do this sort of matching to find that, to see where the variance is. But what he's going to do now is, again, open CoPilot for Finance. And two things happen. One, he can say, let's just go ahead and get the financial data. Let's get those invoices. So he clicks on Get Financial Data. And notice it's a natural language prompt where he can type in to say, get invoices, get what have you. It also even says get open purchase order lines. So there's various activity that he can get directly from the ERP and bring into Excel. We're going to say get open invoices from customer. And it does the prompt there. And then all I need to do is type the name of the customer, Fabricam. And then CoPilot Finance will go out. It finds the data and it says it's found 358 Fabricam invoices. It brought it into the spreadsheet. You can see here are the list of invoices. Here are all the documents, document numbers, document dates, etc. And then next up, again, would be the comparison. But again, that's a very time-consuming process. What we just want to do is have CoPilot Finance reconcile the data. Now, just a second on this reconciliation feature, and I'll just take one step back. Reconciling data isn't just about the example that we're using here, which is customer invoices and vendor invoices. It can be used for any sort of reconciliation processes that happen within an organization. And we know most customers, especially enterprise customers, have thousands of reconciliations that they do each month, and it takes a significant amount of time. This can be used for general ledger, subledger reconciliation. It can be used for intercompany reconciliation, bank reconciliation, fixed assets reconciliation, any sort of two sets of data that you're trying to do reconciliations that have commonalities between them. So again, I will click on the reconcile data. It goes and it finds that there's two worksheets in here, the one from Northwind that was sent by Jane, the customer details that I just retrieved. It then finds that there's two tables within. Again, you could have more than one table, obviously, in a worksheet, but in this case, we only have two. And then it creates the reconciliation rules. So here it's got 5 vectors that it's proposing, and this is where it's going to do the comparison. You only require 2. One is a monetary value, and one is a mapping key. So I could regenerate it if I wasn't happy with these 5. I could dismiss it and create my own. But I'll just keep the ones that the AI has provided. And again, I could even here go through and select a different column if I thought I want to try something else. But again, we'll just use what CoPilot for Finance has provided. We hit next. So it then goes through and provides this reconciliation. And again, so it tells you what's been matched, unmatched. Notice it's got 357 matched transactions. They're all collapsed here. I could expand them, but I'm not going to, just for interest of time. And what it does is it also gives you this reconciliation summary. Now, imagine if during a reconciliation, if this was being used for something like your month end, quarter end reconciliation of the general ledger account, the sub ledger account, you might want this summary that's provided to use this to append to your report so that you could use it as part of an audit, like an internal audit for your documentation. So I could just say, save it as a PDF. If I wanted a different sort of version of it, I could hit regenerate, but I could just say include this summary in a report, and it appends it to the bottom of the file. And then and then at the same time, if I click on this, I can here, you see that there's some troubleshooting. It tells me exactly what the invoice that's found. It gives me some more detail. It says this is the invoice, here's what's found, and it gives me a bit of troubleshooting information here as well. So now, final step, I have this information. I need to send this to Jane to say, hey, I found in a list what's missing. It's this one particular invoice of $513,000. I can just quickly copy, go back to the email, reply to Jane, and then I can just do the standard Control V. And here is the invoice information about the invoice. But the next question that anyone wants to that obviously will happen is Jane would naturally come back and say, well, that's great, but can you send me the invoice? I don't have it in our records. So what I can do is just go back into CoPilot for Finance and say, you know what, let's go ahead and add the invoice. Here's the invoice. And I can just do this and say attach invoice to draft. And there we go. So now in just a matter of minutes, I was able to look at what Jane had, the report that she sent to me, reconcile it, find the information, and send the invoice back to Jane, just like that. So that's the end of sort of this demo. But I guess what I wanted to just also say is that what you've seen today, this is just the beginning. We've just launched CoPilot for Finance. We have a lot more that we're looking to provide in the future. And if there's any questions, certainly feel free to reach out through Chris or Alex and certainly pass any questions to us that you have. I guess one final thing I would like to say, Chris, if we can at some point to go back to the demo, it's just how Microsoft itself is actually using is using CoPilot for Finance. So Microsoft is using the reconciliation in Excel feature. And as you can see, it's shaving off almost 20 minutes per account reconciliation. So that's about 1 to 2 hours spent reconciling data that's now done in 10 minutes. And to be perfectly honest, Microsoft is not the only customer that is saying that they're seeing that benefit. It's really, we've had customers say it's shaving hours off of their efforts.
Perfect. Wayne, hey, appreciate that. That was excellent. I just wanted to make a quick, and as Alex, we transition to Alex here, just make a quick point. You just saw CoPilot for Finance. There's a lot of capabilities that are coming out around CoPilot for supply chain. We're not going to show those today. A lot of those are still under NDA, but I just want to let people know that it's just not in the finance area that we're working. And the supply chain side, it's all going to be about, planning, demand planning, MRP optimization, shortages, blah, blah, blah. But you'll be hearing more about that the next couple of months. All right, Alex, take it over. Alex, you there? Mute?
Let's you're mute.
Yeah, I appreciate the help there, Chris. Yeah, I'm Alex Fredrickson. I'm all about helping our clients and customers keep up to date with what's new from Microsoft, and really more importantly, understand how they can take advantage of some of these new features and capabilities within Dynamics and Power Platform to benefit their businesses. I'll be going through our sales CoPilot scenarios today, and in the spirit of our CoPilot topic, going to be keeping things moving at a breakneck speed here to go through really two key scenarios. First, I wanted to walk through some of what's upcoming that may or may not be released to date. So giving you a bit of a peek forward into what's coming in the sales CoPilot space. And then second, I wanted to show you some of my favorite features and how I use my sales CoPilot on a day-to-day basis within Dynamics 365 sales. In this first scenario really ties in well to what Mike had mentioned earlier, so I'm glad he said it about CoPilot and AI in general, really creating a shift in that intersect between people and software and how we interact with our softwares. And in this demo that I'll be walking you through in a number of different areas, it's going to show how CoPilot can follow us everywhere. In every application that we use, and in many different scenarios, I can lean on my CoPilot to speed up my work activities, to automate tasks for me, to make suggestions in terms of how I complete my work, to help me be efficient and successful. And so in this first scenario, I'll be walking us through how CoPilot's going to act as that AI assistant from Outlook into Teams, into my Microsoft 365 apps, and then we'll bring it back into Dynamics. And so really just providing that assistant everywhere I go to bring these capabilities to me, however I interact with my software today or in the future. So here I'm interacting with an email from one of my clients, and they've actually just provided me with some great news that they're able to secure and commit budget for a deal that we're working on. So here I want to leverage my CoPilot to interact with this particular email. So here I can see a summary, and so my CoPilot's informing me of really the highlights of what's gone on within this particular email thread. It's also pulling in some additional information from Dynamics and accessing information from other apps as well. But I'll go ahead and pull up sales here. So here I can see information related to this particular customer. First, I can see key sales info related to my CRM platform, understanding who I'm working with, information about this particular deal, as well as what products we're proposing within this particular opportunity. One of the great new features that I love using is the suggested actions. So in this case, the AI immediately understood that the budget had been modified, and it's prompting me to go ahead and update that opportunity now rather than having to remember to do it later within Dynamics 365 sales. I'll go ahead and update that opportunity with one click. My opportunity's now been revised to reflect that $250,000 budget. And I can also go and update other aspects or attributes of that opportunity while I'm here as well. But now I'll go ahead and reply and let Alex know that I got the great news and provide a little bit more information related to the products within this deal. So I'll go ahead and click Make a Proposal, which, as we saw within Wayne's demo, we'll be able to go out, contextualize information from our conversation, from Dynamics and elsewhere related to our products, and provide me with a templated email to send back to my customer. I can change the tone if I want it to be shorter, longer, more enthusiastic. I can ask my AI assistant to do that. In this case, I'll go ahead and keep it as is, informing Alex of information about the Zenith V2 tent, our flagship product here. Now that I've sent that email away, I want to make sure that my team is prepared for our upcoming meeting where we hope to close this particular deal. So our CoPilot is going to tie straight through into Teams as well. So here I can create a new deal room to manage my activities related to this particular sales opportunity. In this case, I already have one that I can quickly access directly from my sales CoPilot. Here within my team site, I'm going to go ahead and create a document to help our team get ready for this upcoming meeting. So I'll open a new Word document, give it a name, and create it. Now that I'm in Word, my CoPilot's going to show up here as well and give me the opportunity to automate my document creation for this sales background info that I wanted to share with my team. So I'll go ahead and select my sales meeting that's upcoming, this proposal review. You can see here I can add additional reference content. So just how Wayne showed us, if we wanted to add an additional reconciliation report to give the AI more context, we have the ability to do that here as well. So if I have a format that I like to use or a previous meeting prep notes that I wanted to leverage here, I could provide that context to my CoPilot as well. But here I'll go ahead and click generate, which will quickly create this proposal review agenda and backgrounder for my sales team. So here it's provided a bit of an overview of the client itself, some information related to the meeting and the opportunity within Dynamics 365. It'll even go as far as going into previous meeting insights. So it's referring to a number of different meetings here and information related to those particular meetings. And last, it's showing me any other open activities across the organization, whether that's tasks that are completed or in progress, emails that have been shared back and forth, not just between myself and this client, but between my peers within the organization, and other records within CRM that might be relevant to the conversation. Maybe we're tracking trouble tickets, field service work orders, or other items that might come up within our conversation. So with just a few clicks, I've created this comprehensive overview, and I can make sure that my team is fully aware of what's going on heading into this particular meeting. Heading back to Teams, I can post that into my team site so everybody's notified that I've created this document. And then once we complete our meeting, I'll have the ability to, again, leverage my CoPilot to make my work easier after my meeting. So here's a recap of that proposal, follow-up with our client, Alex Baker. I can see a lot of information related to how the call went, what was discussed, who was participating. But specific to sales and our sales CoPilot, I can understand what follow-up tasks were discussed within this meeting, and I can create those tasks directly within Dynamics 365. So in this case, Nancy's going to be coordinating with their team to create that proposal so we can get this deal closed. I can change the due date. I can change who's going to own this particular activity, and then I can create it with one click. I can also see the comprehensive notes of this meeting. I can copy this to my clipboard to share elsewhere, or even save that directly to my notes within Dynamics 365 as well. So here we've seen our CoPilot follow me around in all the applications that I use on a day-to-day basis to ensure that I'm not neglecting my opportunity. I'm not neglecting reporting back into our CRM so my manager and my organization can understand how deals are progressing through the pipeline in real time. So that was a look at a number of different capabilities that are going to be coming this spring and potentially into early summer, and how CoPilot is really going to be helping me across all the applications that I leverage daily. Now I wanted to go into a quick overview of some of the ways that I like using my CoPilot when I'm using Dynamics 365 in my role every day here at Armanino. Apologies, my window closed in the background there as I was showing that first scenario. But here I've got my work list here and my sales accelerator within Dynamics 365 for sales. My CoPilot, again, is going to be following me around. So here I can access it from a tray on the right. And as I pull up CoPilot, I can see it's providing me with information related to deals. So first, I like to use my CoPilot to understand what meetings I have today and contextualize all of my notes within Dynamics and within Office 365 to help me prepare for those meetings. So if I click Prepare for Meetings here, it's going to give me a summary of what's upcoming and information related to these upcoming deals that I might find important. So here I can see I have a quote review meeting with Alex Baker. They say that they're ready to buy. And I'm reminding them of our agenda, which is going to be reviewing a quote of these A100 espresso machines that I've quoted for them, which I'll be sending across after the meeting. So that's great. I'm ready to go. I don't need to start digging through my emails to figure out what we need to talk about. My co-pilots provided it for me here. From here, I can jump into that opportunity with Alex Baker. As soon as I open this opportunity within Dynamics, my co-pilot's going to start churning to provide me with more information about this particular deal, background on what we're trying to sell on this occasion, and information about the particular products that are associated to this opportunity. So as that's pulling up, we can take a look at some of the specifics of what it found. So in this case, it's providing me with some updates on two different things. It's providing me a change log of what's changed in this opportunity recently, and then it's providing me with that summary. So here I can see that myself or some of my colleagues, in this case Jeffrey, have updated my opportunity this week, and I can see the highlights of what's going on within this deal. I also have the ability to interact with those suggested actions here within my insights area. In this case, there's an email related to this deal that contains a stakeholder that we're unaware of, and it hasn't been associated into this opportunity. So if I want to associate that individual, I can see Ashley Smith was on a recent email related to this opportunity. I can go ahead and add them into this deal, and they'll be added into my list of stakeholders here. And last, I wanted to show how I engage with my prospects, leveraging my co-pilot. So here, let's jump into this deal. I'm trying to sell Chris an espresso machine for an upcoming event. Here it's providing me with, again, a summary of what's going on for this particular prospect. But more importantly, it's going to help me understand who this prospect is, who their peers and colleagues are within their organization, so I can more effectively sell to them. So here I can pull up my LinkedIn Sales Navigator window within my co-pilot. It's going to find Chris within LinkedIn. It's going to provide me background on Chris and allow me to quickly message him, connect with him, and interact through the LinkedIn platform. Wouldn't be a live demo without a little spinning here, so we'll just give it a second, and then we'll take a look at that.
Yeah, hey Alex, I don't want to cut you short, but we need to get on to the next one here soon. We're going to run.
All right, let's do it. Perfect timing.
All right, perfect. Do you want to stop sharing, Mike? You want to take it? Maybe just touch on the customer service, co-pilot for customer service, and then get into the studio. I think that's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, I'm gonna go quickly through through D365 customer service, because it's for me, it's a great example of Copilot built into the application experience. So this D365 customer service is product for call centers. I'm doing the demo actually using screenshots that I captured, just because there's a lot of complexity with emails coming in and things like that. It's easier to demo this way, but this was taken from production. I should point out that in addition to all the customers that are running D365 customer service, Microsoft support runs it. So we have over 40,000 support agents around the world using this. And we have, from June of 2023, they've been using Agent Copilot, which you can see here on the right. So this is my agent desktop. By the way, that we can't show real customer data. So the support agent's name is Harry Potter. Harry probably doesn't need Copilot, but for everybody else, this should be the answer. So on the left is my queue of cases. In the center is the current case, and on the right is Copilot. This is an M365, so the office support team uses this. And Harry's jumped into a case about a SharePoint file that somebody was trying to share a link to, and the customer couldn't access it. And the case has been going on for a while. There's a bunch of emails back and forth between support, and the customer. And kind of the idea of showing those here is, you kind of wanted the support agent to read the emails, come up to speed so that they knew what they were talking about before they jumped into the case. But we all know what usually happens with any call center. The support agent just immediately starts asking you the same questions you've already answered. So the first Gen AI feature is right there at the top, case summary. And Harry can click case summary. And now CoPilot is looking in D365 at the customer information, the case details, and reading all of those emails. And we've directed CoPilot to produce a summary. And it's a really short 15-line summary that's right there. It's got all the context from all those emails. It's going to highlight what the last agent did. It's going to highlight what the customer's open question is. Now Harry can read that really quickly and jump right in, select that top email, and get ready to respond. And as soon as Harry clicks that, CoPilot opens on the right, and CoPilot has, we don't want Gen AI to mean chat box where you have to come up with a prompt. We've got a series of actions for which the prompt has been carefully engineered, ready to go. Harry's going to go ahead and click resolve the customer's problem. And now the office support team has actually been able to register their entire knowledge base of prior cases and solutions with CoPilot. So CoPilot is now searching that knowledge base, finding a similar case, finding the answer, and actually generating an email that is ready to go back to the customer, that's got the kind of friendly greeting at the front, friendly greeting at the back, and it's got the necessary thing about enabling guest permissions right there in the middle. And we, as you can see, this content is identified as AI generated. We're doing that wherever we're doing this in the product. And so now Harry can click just a single button and copy that answer into the email, ready to go back to the customer. Harry can change it if he wants, but in general, we're finding great results with that. And Harry can now click send, and off we go. So if you sort of think about the way people typically describe work in a contact center, it's called swivel chair work, because you're sitting there, you're looking at the case system, then you have to go switch and swivel and search the knowledge base, then you have to come back and switch to Outlook and go write the response, and then come back and update the case. And what we did is Harry didn't have to do that. Harry stayed right here in context. CoPilot did the swiveling, and that really just changes the experience, makes it, actually we're seeing higher employee satisfaction with leveraging CoPilot to take care of their customers. But as I mentioned, we've been running this at Microsoft for 9 months now with CoPilot and generating metrics on how it's actually changing the business. So CoPilot is enabling double-digit increase in the percentage of cases that can be handled, double-digit improvement in the response time, the average call handling time, and a key thing we're seeing with all Copilots is it's decreasing the need for an expert. That we have double-digit improvement in that first agent, no matter how junior they are, that gets a case, being able to close it without getting help. And this is a thing that we're seeing universally, is it elevates new employees that you're trying to onboard very, very quickly to have proficiency. And against this backdrop of these three, we're also seeing metrics that we're going to share soon on higher job satisfaction with the agents that are working with CoPilot, and higher customer satisfaction with the AI-generated answers when we're doing A/B testing. And so usually when you improve the efficiency, you have to make a trade-off someplace. And the amazing thing that we're seeing with CoPilot and service is it's not a trade-off. It's a win-win. More efficient, better results, happier users, happier customers. Okay, so that was a really quick tour of CoPilot for Service. And now what I want to show you is CoPilot Studio really quickly. And this is the way you extend an M365 Copilot. You can actually build your own Copilots, and it's how we extend the Copilots that we're delivering. If people were familiar with Power Virtual Agents, that was our bot building tool. CoPilot Studio is the evolution of Power Virtual Agents, now with the power of generative AI. And so you can go to a website, and the link is there. We'll share it afterwards, and actually create a trial of CoPilot Studio. And when you say, I want to create a Copilot, you get brought to this screen, And the first thing it's going to ask you after you name your CoPilot and ask, tell it what language you want it to work in, it's going to ask for a pointer to your public website. And the idea is you can simply point CoPilot at your public website, and all of a sudden you already have something useful that can answer questions where the content is there. So if you think about the way bot building worked historically, you had to go create a flowchart and script out every little bit of the conversation the bot was going to be able to handle. What questions would it know how to answer? How would it prompt the user for more information? Everything had to be very, very precisely scripted. Now, all I've done is point at the website. And here's an example of one I actually built for a customer yesterday. The customer is Signode. I did nothing more than point at the website, and then way down on the website, there was a page, and it was a complex page with a table and graphics that described their PackPoint SS6 machine and its capabilities. And I asked CoPilot, I said, how many boxes per minute can this PackPoint SS6 process? And it found the answer. And as we do very often, whenever it's possible, it footnoted where it got that answer from. So you can both find more information and also build trust that CoPilot's doing the right thing. So like I literally had to do nothing other than point at its website, and I didn't have to flowchart the conversation. It can answer questions. I then went on and asked it a compound question, kind of the thing that made bots, really struggle, and said, how many boxes per minute can that machine process, and what's the overall system footprint? And now you can see it actually answered both of those questions and separately footnoted the places in the website where it found that information. So with nothing more than pointing at a website, you get a bot that you can use for your own employees to digest information, or even think about putting on a website for customers to access. You can still go into the advanced functions and create a custom topic. If you have a process you want the bot to be able to implement, you can still do that the same way it was there in Power Virtual Agents. You can also give it access to more data, like point it, just like the Microsoft Office support team pointed at their case archive. We can point at a SharePoint repository. If you had a new business promotion or a process that you were introducing, you could write a separate Word document that described that and upload that to CoPilot. And we're adding all the capability to let you harvest data directly, for example, out of Dataverse as well. And so this is an amazingly capable tool. But for me, it's also one that customers can get started with today. They can use it for their employees to have better access to information first, then think about making it available to customers or to partners. But it's a great way for them to develop comfort and governance process around how am I going to leverage AI in my business? Who's going to manage what documents I'm exposing, et cetera. So just a super powerful tool, but also just a great first step into generative AI capability. You can access advanced settings and do things to kind of tell it to use a particular tone. You can also use it to orchestrate actions. So this is the final thing I'm going to show. This is an example from Holland America Cruise Lines. And again, humans don't ask questions the way bots want them, in simple one question at a time. Here the person's asking, what are the last minute cruise options next week to the Bahamas, and what's the weather like there now? And they've registered 2 APIs with CoPilot. One is the MSN Weather API. So it says, oh, I know how to pick this apart. I know what the 2 questions are that are in there. Cruise options next week, Bahamas, weather, Bahamas now. I've got that weather API, I can call it. But when CoPilot sees the cruise options to the Bahamas next week, it says, wait, that API also needs to know where you want to leave from. And on its own, the AI is able to generate the question that says, hey, where do you want to depart from? And as soon as the user gives that answer, it can now call the API and give the response. And so this is an amazingly powerful tool for using the documents that you already have, the web content you already have, and APIs that you already have, whether they're in Dynamics or elsewhere. And so, just a strong recommendation for me for all our partners and all our customers is CoPilot Studio is just an incredibly powerful place to harness value quickly from Gen AI, but also to learn about what it's like to work with it and govern it in your organization. So there, Chris, that was as quick as I could go through it, but hopefully we got to the important stuff.
We did. Thank you, Mike. That was good. And as Pascal mentioned in the chat window, this is something that is where Armanino's making big investments in, and so happy to do a deeper dive around CoPilot for Studio. But exciting stuff. I want to thank, hey Mike, thank you so much for joining today. Wayne, Alex, really appreciate you guys sharing with the rest of the team here. And for the participants out there, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot an email in and we'll get those answered right away. But I want to be respectful of time, and it is exactly 11 o'clock. Everybody have a great Thursday and a good weekend. All right. Thank you, Mike. All right. Take care.